Now, let's move on here to the debate about e-cigarettes. I can't believe that Greg Hunt earlier this week said that e-cigarettes, vaping, will not be legal under a government that I'm the health minister in. Fair dinkum. This is something that if you want to have tobacco in it, fine, fair enough, but the extreme majority of people who do vape do not have tobacco in those products whatsoever. They just get off on the plume. But we live in the nanny state. Here's what Tom Connell reported from Canberra today.
They're legal in Europe, the US and soon New Zealand, but as for Australia...
The Therapeutic Goods Authority knocked back an application to licence a product just in the last year.
That's because it said, unlike nicotine patches, vaping is not proven as a quitting aid, and it could have other side effects.
Sometimes the downstream effects, the long-term effects of these products may not be visible for years, and we need to be very sure that we're not doing any harm.
Proponents say e-cigarettes can be the last chance to kick the habit, but it's a contested area.
I think the numbers are about 2/3 of people find they can either cut down substantially on their smoking or give it up entirely.
So, Senator Leyonhjelm, let's start with you here. I mean, the government has gone about as hard as you possibly can. You know, this doesn't happen under my watch. But what I find amazing is, you know, if you want to smoke pot in the ACT, you can do it. Nobody talks about the potential matters to do with what the long-term consequences will be about mental health, or the long-term consequences will be about inhaling that sort of smoke. But we can't even have a pilot scheme here in one part of Australia to say, OK, let's see how this goes. The hypocrisy is obvious and is happening now.
Yes, you're right. It's profound hypocrisy. And, you know, it's not just innocent hypocrisy. It'll cost lives. The thing is, when you smoke tobacco, you're inhaling something like 2,000 chemicals. And some of those chemicals are what cause lung cancer and emphysema and cardiac disease. When you just vape with nicotine, you're only getting nicotine, nothing else. And nicotine does not cause lung cancer or cardiovascular problems or emphysema. Now, people are going to die from those diseases because e-cigarettes are not available. And the thing is, in the countries where e-cigarettes are available, rates of smoking are going down. They're not going down in Australia any longer. The difference is e-cigarettes.
It's this thing, Nicholas, again, I mean, surely if there are parts of the country where if you want to smoke pot, it's OK, but if you want to vape, it's not. It's not naturally occurring in either circumstance to have a smoking product around you here. It's about removing the crap from the nicotine, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, all the evidence that I've seen in this debate is that the vapes are less harmful than tobacco, and so I would sort of say, well, if tobacco is legal, then the vapes with the nicotine in it should be legal as well. And I guess I'd point to the United States and Europe where they are legal and say, well, why can't we have that in Australia? And if it's a pathway to getting people off the smokes, I'd say all the better. But also it is this thing too, Peter, where, again, the selective invoking of other countries, right? So the very same people that would be against this will be the same people who say, well, in Oregon they have euthanasia and it works really, really well. In Mexico they have same-sex, you know, it's like, come on.
Yeah, or in France they have nuclear power, but those lefties won't let us have it, even a debate about nuclear power.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, I am not a smoker, but I support smokers' rights because why? The Commonwealth is ripping money out of their pocket in the form of taxation and using it to fill budget hole after budget hole after budget hole. If it's legal, it should be legal and
Correct.
It can't be in this quasi land. I just want to say with vaping, you know, there's lots of different things you can vape. It's obviously not just nicotine, and I'd want to make sure for someone who doesn't want the passive smoke that I don't want any downside, you know, downstream effects from the vaping. But I tell you what, I'm probably safer with a vapor sitting next to me than I am a cigarette smoker.
Correct, or a cigar smoker every
Well,
day.
I like the cigar.
There's a very important point there, isn't there, that like stacks of people at the moment are importing vapes with nicotine and buying it on the internet, and I would say that's a risky, you know, thing to be doing. Better to actually allow it and regulate it so you can at least get some controls around it, rather than people rolling the dice every time they buy it on the internet.
So, Senator Bernardi, why is the government so dead against it, so aggressive about it when, you know, a group of adults can have a reasonable discussion about this? Their position is, ain't happening.
It's because the bureaucrats are in charge, mate. Greg Hunt normally is actually pretty good at diffusing complex issues, and I recognise that in him. But You know, when you talk about tobacco, there is an irrationality that comes along to it. You know, I once inquired about going to the UN Tobacco Conference, and of course it was met with outrage because they ban any media going or any observers going because it's like a, you know, a cloistered groupthink session. Close to my office, there's a vaping store, so they're selling an illegal product openly. And I just can't see why this is banned at all. You know, if it's healthier, that's one argument. But if cigarettes are legal in this country, vaping should be legal too. So I think that's 4 from 4 out of your panellists today.
Well, I like it. All right.